There's a newer project out called Node.AI, and this one's a little bit different. It's not necessarily a crypto project in the regular sense that we're used to, but it's more of a rental platform, and they are leveraging Ethereum for payments. And essentially, what you're able to do is you're able to either provide on it or rent on it or do both. And so today, what I decided to do is decide to rent some systems. So before we walk through it, what I do want to talk about is here you can see I do already have a system rented. I ran it for 12 hours, and this just so happens to be Red Panda Mining's rig, and we'll talk about that. And essentially, it is 33090s that I rented for a 12-hour period. You can see we got about 2 hours left on the rental, so we've been renting this for about 10 hours. I've been doing some mining on it, and I'm going to talk about kind of what the process is like from a renter perspective. Now, I believe he may be having a video coming out soon, or it may already be out at the time that this gets published, about providing on it. So I'm personally not running any providers. He did that side. I'm just doing the renting side to kind of check it out, compare it to other platforms like Vast, like Clore, any of those kind of rental marketplaces where you can essentially just rent out a rig and do whatever you want with it. So if we hop on over to their main website, you can kind of see the powering demand for next gen AI. Now, they are putting AI in this. However, in the end, what you're doing is you are renting compute power and running whatever you want on it for the most part. There are some limitations, which I do want to talk about in this video. So if we hop on over to their doc section, I want to start over here and go to the renting section and just kind of talk about the way that it works. And so if we hop on over to get started, and this give you a feel for what's gonna kind of be involved with this. It's a little bit different. They are using Ethereum, which means that you do have to use Wallet Connect. So you do have to use something like MetaMask, any of the browser extension wallets that can store Ethereum. You can do Phantom, you can do any of those. However, you do have to connect that wallet, and it is going to basically withdraw the funds from there. You do have to prepay for the full rental period. So some other platforms like Clore, they essentially, decrement your credits as you go along. Hour by hour, minute by minute, whatever the platform may be. This one, you're actually committing up front and prepaying for that whole allotment. So if you choose a 30-day rental, you're going to have to pay, like $1,000, whatever, up front. So do keep that in mind. And so you are going to see in here, there is a Wallet Connect. And then I will show you the Node dashboard here in a minute that shows you all the available systems. But this kind of gives you a screenshot of what that's like. And then you do have the option to pick the rental duration. And then you're going to confirm payment. And again, you're going to use MetaMask. So for me, I actually used MetaMask hooked up to a Ledger wallet that had a very small amount of Ethereum in it. And this way, any transaction I did have to approve on the Ledger. So I know there wasn't really anything else going on in the background. Just something that I would recommend. Now, I would not do this with a long-term storage wallet or a wallet that you have tons of funds in. What I would recommend is getting a Ledger, Trezor, any type of hardware wallet that can hook up to MetaMask, and having a small amount in there that you're just using for the rentals. And then once it's rented, it's basically going to give you a SSH login. So it's going to give you SSH. It's going to be generally on port 4444, and they're going to give you a password. Now, a couple caveats with this that I ran into. One is it doesn't default into the CLI interpreter. We'll talk about that when we connect. It also limits you to one session at a time. So if you try to open 2 terminal windows, your first one will get disconnected. So that means you cannot have multiple sessions running at the same time. Keep that in mind. And the other thing I ran into, I could not get Putty to work with it. So it will work with Terminal and Windows. It'll work with CLI, SSH CLI, I actually tested it from a Hive OS rig. I was able to SSH into it, and we'll show you that today as well in this video. And then, once you get into the terminal, you should be able to run any command you want. And once we jump into it, I am going to show you some limitations. But before we do that, I do want to hop on over to the dApp. So if you are on their website, you can click the dApp button at the top right. We can hop back to their main website. And if you just hit go to dApp, and then you're going to have to do a wallet connect here at the top right. I've already have my wallet connected, so we're good to go. And then I do recommend, especially if you're going to rent, go to the profile section, plug in your username here. It will give you 5 of their points for putting in a username. And then they do have a leaderboard. And this is really for the renter, or for the providers rather. And you can see Panda's here at number 8. He's currently at level 1. I'm still at level 0. So if we go to the next page, not sure how many pages there are here, but I'm probably going to be pretty far down in the list because I still am at a level 0. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hop on over to the renting section. And as you can see, I already have this one rented. And it does include the transaction ID that I paid for. And if I click into this, it gives me my SSH info. And it gives me the password. Now, once the time has expired, the credentials also expire. So they won't work anymore. So by the time this video is published, these credentials will no longer work. In fact, they're only good for about another 2 hours. In order to rent a system, you'll go over to Nodes. And this is where you can see all the systems that are available. Here you can see this is actually Red Pandas. So he's running a 1900X and 33090s. I already have it rented. If somebody else had it rented, you would not be able to rent it. It'll say active rental. However, if there's ones that are available, you will see those here. So as an example, if we wanted to rent this system, which has i5-13500 and the new RTX 4000 small form factor ADAs, go ahead and say rent now, and you can see it's 1 hour, or sorry, 99 cents an hour. And these are your options. So you can get 12 hours, 24, 3 days, 1 week, 1 month, or you can do custom. Now, the minimum rental is 12 hours. So keep that in mind. If you attempt to do something like 3 hours and say confirm, you'll get an error here saying the minimum duration is 12 hours. So let's go ahead and go back into that. And if we do 12 hours, hit confirm. Here it's going to tell you the price. So the cost is going to be 0.0034 ETH. This does not include the transaction fee. So when you say confirm, it is going to pop up with your wallet. And here it's going to tell you what the estimated fee is. Fees aren't too bad right now. It's at $7.50, but that is still a substantial amount given that, what we're working with is an $11 transaction, and we're having to pay $7. When I did this this morning, I actually had to pay, I think it was around a $25 transaction fee to spend like $12. So this is one of the big drawbacks, is don't let this price deceive you. You are going to have to pay a substantial amount if there's activity happening on Ethereum. So you would do this, you would hit confirm, and then it will basically process the rental. And then what you'll have to do is you'll hop over to the renting section, and it'll show up here as a rig. And then you'll click into it, and we've got our credentials now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a terminal. And what we need to do is we want to copy this top one. So we're going to go ahead and copy the SSH command. This is going to be a unique username that they generate. And it's going to be at tunnel.nodes.ai, which is basically what they're using to do almost like a proxy where it's doing a traffic forwarder to the actual destination host. in this case, being Red Panda Mining's system. And so now you see we've got this Node.AI prompt, and it's saying, please sign in with your rental credentials. So now we need to grab our password, and we want to paste in that password. It's going to connect, and here you can see it's telling us that our rental is going to expire in about 2 hours. So again, once that happens, your credentials will no longer be good. Go ahead and maximize this window. And first thing we can see is there are security updates. So one of the things that I do want to show you is if we wanted to do anything, the interpreter that we have right now isn't actually bash. So what we need to do is type bash. This is going to put us into a bash interpreter. If you do not do this, then what will happen is you'll get an error saying that you can't have a slash in your command. And the reason for that is it doesn't understand how to interpret the commands. So just make sure you do bash first. And I have already downloaded T-Rex on this specific one, but I will give you an example. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder. Just going to call this temp. And then we're going to download the miner in here. And one of the things I do want to show you is in the event we wanted to install a package. Let's just say we wanted to use Git to download it. If we do an apt install Git, here you can see we don't have permissions. If we do sudo, it's going to ask us for the password, which I still have copied. If we put that in, you're going to see it's going to say, try again. This account does not have sudo access. And so we're not able to actually run any sudo commands. That means we can't run an apt update. We can't install any packages. We can't even install like the PowerShell runtime, so we can't run Rainbow Miner on this thing. There are a substantial amount of limitations. Another thing that you're going to notice that's not here is if we try to run an nmap command. So if we wanted to scan the network for ports, we can't do that. However, there are some alternatives. And one of those alternatives is to run a nc command. So if you're not familiar with nc, this is basically this is the netcat command, and this can actually scan ports. So one of the things that we can do with this is we can do a nc-z to do the 0IO mode, which is basically we just want to do port scanning. And then we can do -v to do a more verbose output. And then our IP address. So we're going to use the IP address of the system, which if we do an IPA, we can see what that IP address is. And we're going to do, and again, these are all internal IPs. You're not going to see any external IPs here. So we're going to do a nc -z-v, and then we're going to use the IP, which in this case is going to be 215. And then we can do a port range. So just for simplicity here, we're going to do ports 1 through 100. This is then going to go and do a sweep of the ports. And what we can see is port 22 is open. And this is actually the only port on this system that I believe is opened as part of this. But that is just a quick, easy way to scan the ports to see what ports are available. So you can run that command, but this just shows you don't have elevated access to the system to do a whole lot because you don't have sudo access. And something that would normally be like a Docker container where you would have that elevated access, you don't here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how you would use this to mine. You're not going to be able to import this in Hive OS or anything like that like you could normally do with Clore. But what we can do is, I think we're created a folder. So let's go ahead and move into that temp folder. And now what we're going to do is we're going to hop on over to the T-Rex GitHub, which I actually have right here. And I'm downloading an older version of T-Rex because I know this version still had X21S mining in it, which is Pigeon Coin. So we're going to go to the releases. We're going to go to the Linux. I'm going to use the CUDA 11.1. We're going to copy that link address. We're going to come over here. We're going to do a wget command. And we are going to right click to paste that in. And this is going to go ahead and download. Okay, so now we've got the miner archive downloaded. So we're going to do a tar zxvf to extract it. I'm going to do the T-Rex file. And now what we end up with is the actual T-Rex miner. So if we do T-Rex and we do an H, the miner should load up the help file. So this is how we're going to have to run the miner. So we need to do the algorithm. So we're going to do X21S. The pool we're going to use in this case, I'm going to use my own Pigeon Coin pool. And one of the things you might notice with terminal is it doesn't handle long commands very well. So it'll actually wrap it to the side, which is really weird, and it'll look like it's overwriting, but it's not. If you want, you can pop open a like a notepad file, type everything out, and paste it in. Which we're actually going to do in this case, just so it looks a little cleaner. All right, and so what we have is we have /T-Rex -A X21S is our algo, our stratum, and then our wallet address. We're going to go ahead and hit enter, and this should start up the T-Rex miner. And there you can see it kind of hashing away in the background. Now, normally what I would do is I would open up another session, run NVIDIA SMI, to kind of take a look at the GPU. Unfortunately, we can't do that because we can only have one session. And because we don't have sudo access, we can't even run screen sessions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Control-C. We're going to go ahead and close the miner. And then we're going to do a NVIDIA SMI. And you can see, we can see the details of the GPU. So we can see that there are 33090s. They're currently around idle, around 56 watts software-wise. And so we can see all of that information here. However, unless we were going to run T-Rex in the background, and then we'd have to run a kill command, we could certainly do that, but then it's going to be hard to track, you know, the output, things like that. It would be really nice if we could at least have a screen as part of the base install of, you know, however we're running this. But let's go ahead and start the miner back up. And what you're going to see is there are 3 ASUS NVIDIA RTX 3090s. And it is hashing away. It's going to take a minute or two here for the mining difficulty to adjust, the pool difficulty rather. And once that adjusts down, we won't be getting as many rapid shares. But it's a substantial amount of hash rate right now hitting the Pigeon network. Right now the total network hash rate's around 2 gigahash, and we're pushing 142 megahash. So it's a substantial amount of hash rate. So we're going to be getting probably some rapid blocks here. But that is, in a nutshell, that is pretty much it. Mining away. We're going to let that thing mine in the background. And here you can see temps are around 70. He's got pretty good cooling setup on these cards. So if you remember a while back, I did renting rigs on Clore, and I actually tried to mine Pigeon on Clore, and every single rig crashed. Either it was overheating or there was an issue with the card thermals. There were issues across the board with every single rig I rented. However, you can see that is not the case with his rigs. But because, I'm not really able to necessarily control too much here, I don't have pseudo access, so there's a lot I can't do. However, from a mining perspective, this will certainly work as long as you don't need elevated access from a Linux perspective. We hop on over here. I've got my pool dashboard, and what we can see is today so far we've earned over 16,000 Pigeon. We got 55,000 pending shares. You can see the hash rate is still ramping up somewhat. And if we have it on over to blocks, you can see that we have hit a few blocks this afternoon. Again, I've been mining with this on and off most of the day. So we are seeing some activity going on here. Now, the other thing that I did want to mention is because we don't have sudo access, we can't install any packages, we can't really install Chrome, we can't test, a whole lot of trying to access resources within the network. However, what I saw was that I was able to identify open ports on other systems within his VLAN, including the VLAN router. However, I wasn't able to VLAN hop into any of his other VLANs. So that was good to see. However, that wasn't a extensive test. That was just a quick couple hour test here to get mining up and running, just at a quick glance, see what was accessible, things like that. If you are interested in renting, this is definitely a easy way to go about it. Again, the biggest drawback at this point is probably a toss-up between the gas fees on Ethereum and the inability to have elevated access. You're really restrictive with the packages. Not that I was trying to do anything nefarious, but I couldn't install Git. I could not install the cross-platform PowerShell library, which is needed to run Rainbow Miner. And so I was not able to do Rainbow Miner without any of those packages. So those are just some of the things that I noticed from a renter standpoint. Now, from a provider standpoint, again, I have not provided on the network. So make sure that if you haven't already, watch Red Panda's Mining's video where he's going to go over, I believe, the actual rental side of it and what it's like setting it up, managing it, whether he's running into, a lot of power draw or not. I don't know the power supplies that he has on the system, but you can see this reported at the software. We're pulling almost 1200 watts, and I am not CPU mining on this. I am purely GPU mining. So if we added CPU mining in, he's got a first gen Threadripper in this, so it's gonna pull a lot of power if I did do CPU mining on all 16 threads. So we're not gonna do that today, but just kind of wanted to give you guys a quick overview. If you are interested in this platform, definitely check it out. They do have docs up to do it. Probably the number one drawback, if you're going to use it for mining, the number one drawback is the gas fees. And you can't really fund your account. You have to pay in real time. There's not like a funding mechanism. So what that means is you can't fund, let's say, $1,000 when gas fees are low and then use that over time. You have to fund it when you rent it. And so that means at the time you're renting, whatever gas fees are, that's what you need to pay.